would go. Wally, as we've got you here, I think it's only right that we speak about the news that broke today, the 25th of April 2024, and that is that it's looking highly likely, and I'm not saying it's a done deal, but it's looking highly likely that after just a year, Zeb Jacobs will be moving on from his role as head of the academy and possibly moving to Feyenoord. Was this a surprise for you?
Not really. I think also, to be said before the pod started, we were at the Dundee United Rangers game a couple of months ago. What is it they call it now? The stadium, what is it they've called it? Because they renamed it, didn't they?
Foundation Park.
Foundation Park.
That's what it is. Yeah. So we went to Foundation Park, and even at that point, there was kind of chatter that potentially Zeb was looking to move on. But obviously, because Martin's probably well aware of obviously going to academy games as well, you hear a lot of things and you hear a lot of rumours and there's always stuff getting said, but that one's never really went away since then. And then obviously over the last, whatever that's been, kind of 48 hours, there's been some news outlets in the Netherlands saying that Zeb's going to move to Feyenoord. Look, I think it's been a disappointing year for the academy overall, if we're being totally honest. I don't think it's been a great year on and off the pitch. You know, the B team schedule this year has been pretty poor. I mean, I think we've played 9 games this year in 2024 and we're nearly at the end of April, so that's just nowhere near good enough. The 18s have just been very inconsistent, as you probably see with the results. It's just been a really tough year for a lot of the academy players. And look, at the end of the day, it is one of those things that every academy can have a down year. It's maybe just been unfortunate that Zeb's been the man that's been here overseeing it after Craig Mulholland had moved on. But yeah, it does seem as though Zeb's probably going to be moving on. Sort of interested to see who we decide to try and go for. Do they just make it an open recruitment and just see if people apply for it, or do we, possibly start headhunting people to find out if they would like to come and join the club? Because I feel like we're at a bit of a turning point at the academy this summer, and that we probably need to recruit somebody for the medium to long term, somebody that's going to be here 3, 5, 7, 10 years potentially, and is going to oversee some change. Because obviously with the B team no longer being in the Lowland League and they're trying to play this game schedule, it's not really worked out this year, and I think there's a lot of frustrated young players there that they're not getting the game time, and I think sometimes the quality of the opposition's been pretty poor. So yeah, it's not been ideal, to be honest, this year, and maybe it's probably for the best that somebody like Zeb does move on for Rangers to look at other options to see who would be looking to take on that job.
I mean, well, in fairness, I suppose, look, nobody knows the academy and the academy players in the academy games, apart from the Rangers coaches, better than Wally Urban. However, it was always going to be a difficult year for Zeb. Well, obviously, we were in the Lowland League last season, and Craig Mulholland's last season, then we decided to come out of that. The way that our academy is kind of positioned, we don't have an under-23s league. There's no real reserve league. So regardless of all the stuff maybe that Zeb wanted to bring in, it was never going to be an easy year for him.
No, it's not. It wasn't, and it's probably not what Zeb signed up for. I don't know how far down the no longer going to be in the Lowland League process we were at when Zeb came in. And Zeb maybe looked at it and went, well, we'll get regular football every week. It's competitive football every week. It's boys against men, but at least it's regular football, and that's what I'm going to be involved in. But as Willie says, they've had 9 games this calendar year, which for the B team, which isn't great. And he's obviously, as head of the academy now, he's obviously got to coordinate all this and get games sorted out. And it's probably not the job he thought he was coming into. Because obviously he came in as a coach first of all, but then when Craig Mulholland left, he took his job over. But he didn't really, because Craig's job, the job Zeb's doing, different to the job Craig was doing, as far as I can see. Looking at it from the distance I am from it, because he doesn't have league games, and somebody's not saying, look, these are your fixtures, this is what you need to prepare for. He's having to find the fixtures or coordinate whoever is finding the fixtures. Whereas if you're in a league, you know that the fixtures are basically going to be put to you, and you have to, set up a team for that. So it's probably not the job Zeb thought it was. I don't know what the structure is like in the Netherlands. I don't know whether the Feyenoord youth system play in a league or what they've got, but I just, as Willie said before we come on, I think the job he's now doing is probably too big a job for what Zeb came in for. He was there as a coach. He got offered the top job. Be daft not to take it and give it a go. If it hasn't worked, then he has to move on. The concerning thing for me is you can't. An academy's a slow burn. You can't keep changing who's at the head of it, because it's all different people, different structures, different thoughts, and you can't change that all the time, because then you won't. You'll have young kids coming through and they're playing Martin's way one season and Willie's way the next season and Kieran's way the next season, rather than saying, right, it's Martin's way for 3 years, and that, then they know what they're doing. So it's difficult. We need to get somebody in. Craig Mulholland was there for a good number of years, and we seem to be doing quite well. We've sort of drifted since he left, so we really need to get somebody in that will stay long term. But we actually thought Zeb Jacobs was going to be that person. Turns out it wasn't. As I say, it's probably not the job he signed up for. It's probably possibly too big a job for him. Sorry to see him go, because that's a bit of continuity away, but let's see if they move on.
I mean, aye, but at the same time, Kieran, people judge, obviously, the academy by the amount of players that academy then brings through into the first team, or even players who get sold on for a bit of money to teams down south. And it's been all quiet on the academy front this season. I think Willie's right. It's been a poor year. Whether the blame for that goes to Zeb, whether it goes to the club, whether it goes to just the players who have come in aren't good enough. But I think Willie's right. It's a massive turning point for us now. We say this every single year, and me and Willie have done countless academy shows where we have repeated this year on year on year. We have to get better with our academy, because right now we're hopeless.
Yeah, I think it comes down to kind of what Will said as well about lack of resources. Look, we'll never actually know, as we're not in the academy day in, day out. So you only kind of get the bits that are fed to you, or bits that somebody said, he said, she said, etc. I think that not having a reserve league is a big thing, because players can't get out there, showcase their talent as much. And as Willie said, having 9 games, it's not really letting anybody see players, see what they're like.
I have to just say, Kieran, there is a reserve league, but there's not many teams in it.
Well, aye. So, I mean, you're not getting you're getting a competitive nature in a way, but you're not getting a complete competitive nature like if there was lots and lots of teams in it. I feel like our academy has always been a bit of a letdown. You get players that are maybe touted to become a Rangers first team player, and they get sent away, or contract stall, or whatever. They have a couple of good games and they're away down south to make some money. Look at Patterson. He was part of the academy. He's now, well, I can't say he's playing for Everton. He's in and about Everton. I feel like it's just, I don't know if it's Zeb's fault, because I think it's been an underlying issue that he's maybe came to when it's kind of started to cap a little bit. I don't blame him for wanting to move on to things, because you're wanting somebody that's not happy with what we've got, but somebody that's willing to improve it. And if the resources aren't there, then I don't think it can be improved. I think it needs to be a sit down with the whole league and say, look, get teams in for a much bigger reserve league, and then you can maybe get teams like players going out on loan, etc. But maybe even to like the Championship, where they're getting consistent games. I think that it's just kind of came to a bit of a stall now. I think that it's not as good as it's been. I wouldn't say it's the worst it's ever been, but I think at the moment somebody needs to make a decision somewhere and try and get it back to not how it was, but to maybe just get that little bit edge back and try and make it more competitive. Because players aren't going to want to come to the academy if they're getting told they're going to be playing maybe 9 games. They're not going to impress anyone like that. They're not going to make something of themselves, or even get into a Rangers reserve sub couple of appearances. I think that something needs to change, but it's going to be somewhere higher up that's got to make that decision.
Well, I can guarantee you that 2012 was a lot worse for the academy than right now. So, but well, a question for our very own Brian. There's surely serious doubt on whether we can keep our youngsters with the lack of game time. Add into that, like what Kieran was saying, attract youngsters with the amount of game time that they're going to get and the pathway through to the first team. Is there a possibility that our youth department could simply disintegrate? You're on mute. You're on mute. See, that's how out of practice he is.
See, I think you muted me. I didn't mute me, so that's how I didn't think it was muted. Yeah, look, absolutely. Because if you don't bring in the person that takes over and he's the right person to do the job, then things could go pretty badly wrong pretty quickly. I mean, the worry at the moment is there's no real structure above the under-18s. So for anybody that's out of contract this summer because they're now too old for the under-18s, or some of the B team players that have had to watch on this season, is basically the setup's been pretty poor. Why would you want to stay? I think that's possibly the biggest concern right across the board. And then you've got guys like Zack Lovely, guys like Archie Stevens, guys like Bailey Rice, who are obviously talented young players that are probably looking at their own future and thinking, this isn't great. This isn't what I signed up for. Obviously, Zach's been unlucky with injuries this season. He might well have played more first-team football had he not got injured that day at St Mirren. I'm sure Bailey must be frustrated beyond belief about 2024, the fact there's been 9 B-team games and the fact he's not really had much first-team football. I think anybody that's watched Bailey would tell you the quality that kid has, so that must be a massive frustration. But yeah, it feels like a massive couple of months coming up for the academy, and if the right decisions aren't taken and the right people don't come in the building, it's probably not going to be pretty next season, to be honest. And that's just being honest about it.
I know, and it's not the most happiest of conversations again to have, Wolf. And by the way, for people watching, if there's anything that you want us to discuss, anything you want to bring up, get it in the comments. We'll bring it up. It's the member show. It's your show. Whatever you want to talk about, we will talk about. But William raises probably the most important point. Well, Zack Lovelace, Bailey Rice. But if we just take them two, for example, right? Obviously, Zack has struggled with injuries, and we hope that his body can hold up to it, because he certainly has the potential. On a different season, he might be in and around this Rangers first team, right, with the problems that we've had up front. Bailey Rice, again, on the Alex Lowry level, if not actually above Lowry level in potential. If these guys don't get the game time, not only is there no real pathway to the first team, not only might we lose them, but they're missing out on football that they need to develop.
Of course, yeah, they're going to end up. I mean, like Zack Lovely. Zack Lovely's come in. He played a few times for Millwall. He came into us and he looked like a prodigious talent. He looks really good. The times I've seen him, he looks really, really good. He got his first team start. As well, he said he was unlucky to get injured at Paisley earlier in the season, and he was head and shoulders above most of his peers. But if they're not going to get the game time, these guys are like Archie Stevens, like Bailey Rice, they're going to go backwards because they're not getting the game time. They're instead of being, the best of their age group or above their age group, they're going to tread water, and everybody else is going to come past them because they're getting more experience. They're getting more exposure to games where, for example, guys like Lennon Miller. Lennon Miller's come in at Motherwell. He's come in at Motherwell. He's getting lots and lots of football because he's good enough. Now, I don't think he's particularly a better player than Bailey Rice, but he's getting the exposure and he's getting the experience. So he's now overtaking Bailey Rice in people's thoughts as a footballer because he's getting it. And I know it's difficult to play players of that age regularly for Rangers, and it's not as difficult to play them for a team like Motherwell. But you can get where I'm coming from. That these guys aren't getting the game time. They're not getting the experience. Not necessarily at first level, at any level. They're just not playing enough games.
Can I just jump in on that point, Wolf, and put it straight back to you? Right, you're talking about Lennon Miller at Motherwell, maybe not even on the same level as Bailey Rice. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Right, nobody knows because it's hard to quantify and kind of judge the two players because Lennon Miller's playing first team football. Right, I've got no doubt in my mind that if Bailey Rice was still at Motherwell, he'd be playing first team football, if not already linked with a big move down south. Right, so see if you're a young player coming up and I'm speaking from experience as having a family member who is on the way up, albeit with a serious injury, but on the way up. If you're a youngster, and we're all about, and we've been told about this player trading model, we want to bring players in and then we want to make them better and we want to sell them. But that player trading model still works for the youth. So are the young Scottish players coming through just going to turn around and go, Rangers? No chance. Absolutely no chance.
That's exactly where I was going. As Kieran said, we're not going to attract the young players, because if I've got 3 girls, I don't have a son that's going to potentially play for Rangers. But for example, if I was in the position you've got with a family member at, coming through as talented as your brother is, right? Much as I'm a Rangers fan, I wouldn't be saying go to Rangers, because he's not going to get games at Rangers. Now, if I remember correctly, Adams already had first team experience. Not a lot of it before he got injured. That wouldn't have happened at Rangers.
No.
It just simply wouldn't. Bailey Rice came into the team, featured a couple of games, disappeared again. He's not even on the bench. You know what I mean? Because it's like that. Like I was saying earlier, it's like that. You can't keep changing heads of academy and academy coaches, because we had a first team manager who said Bailey Rice is ready and never played him. We've got a new manager that came in and played them and went, he's not ready yet. It's all different perceptions. But how's Bailey Rice going to get ready to play if he's not getting any games? He's not getting any games at any level. I mean, some of the B team best versus best games for me, when they played other clubs' first teams, I thought that was good. They played like I think they played, was it Leuven from Belgium? They played their first team. They played Bohemians, Dublin's first team. That's the sort of experience they're going to get against professional guys. Okay, maybe not at the same level as you'd get in the SPFL, but it's against men. It's the sort of thing that we're getting in the Lowland League, and it was regular football. They need regular football at a decent level against guys who are playing for something. I mean, I think the Lowland League thing was great for them, because the standard wasn't great. They're playing against guys who are trying to win stuff. Right? Playing against guys who want, either guys. A lot of the Lowland League guys are coming. They're old hat professionals coming down who are just still want to prove that they can do something, or young guys coming up trying to get a big move into like the professional leagues. So it's competitive stuff against guys who have got something to play for. Our B team, I mean, the under 18s guys. I mean, I watched the under 18s at Aberdeen a couple of weeks ago when they were up here, and they played quite well. It was against an Aberdeen team that was basically under 16, under 17. They're not going to learn anything from that. Okay, they absolutely walloped them, but they learned nothing from that. We're playing in the Youth Cup final next week, when they can bring in all the loan players and stuff. It's going to be a completely different game.
No, but with that Aberdeen team, see the actual under 18s Aberdeen team, they've been, and correct me if I'm wrong, Willie, they've been by far the best team this season in the league. So if that, I had to correct you there. I'm pretty sure Aberdeen have been the best team in the league.
Yeah, they have.
Up until the point they started sending guys out on loan, you could have argued that Aberdeen were probably, the best team at that level. But when they started sending the guys out on loan and they started utilising some of the younger players, they have kind of drifted a little bit. But there's no doubt for the cup final next week, it'll be their very best 11 that'll be out on the pitch. And, that's kind of where I touched on earlier, that the Rangers probably will look towards Paul and CO, Mason Munn, Archie Stevens. Obviously Josh Gentles will drop in for the B team to the 18s. You might even see Bailey Rice playing, because he's still eligible to play at that level. But yeah, look, to be honest, it's just been a really disappointing year, and at the end of the day, when you play for Rangers, there's an expectation you're going to be successful regardless of who you play for in terms of the academy levels. So when you see some of the recent results in some of the academy games and some of the recent performances that we've put in, it's not good for the football club, because at the end of the day, everybody wants to have that dream in their mind that they're good enough to play for Rangers as a young kid. And the way things are going, it's going to be difficult to recruit players for Rangers, because they don't see a pathway towards the first team. Whereas when you look at Hearts, I mean, even in that Cup semi-final, you've got Aidan Denham coming on off the bench. It's you've got Macaulay Tate, who was playing against Rangers in the Lowland League about a season and a half ago. And yet he's in the Hearts first team coming off the bench in a Scottish Cup semi-final. You look down the road, you've got Lennon Muller, that's obviously played a lot for Motherwell. You've got the young lad David Watson at Kilmarnock, who's done really well. St Mirren always move young players up. Guys like Lewis Jameson's obviously played a bit this season. And, you could probably get through most other teams apart from Rangers and Celtic, because it seems to be there's a fear culture that we don't want to put young players in there. I mean, like Leon King's now been wasted for the last 18 months because he's not played any football. Adam Devine has always went out and loaned to Motherwell and played kind of sparingly at times. Alex Lowry obviously went to Hearts, started off well, faded. Now he's come back injured, has missed basically the second half of the season. Zack Lovely has missed half the season with injury. He's probably frustrated so much. He's got a year left in his contract, probably wants to go. I think Archie Stevens has almost made it clear that he wants to go now because he's frustrated with what's happening. Bailey's probably still got interest for clubs in England and abroad. So I would imagine if Rangers don't show their hand this summer with Bailey, then you might find that he's away. Because players can only sit for so long and are prepared to sit for so long before they'll say, right, I'm done. And you obviously know Finley. Finley's out of contract this year. He's probably been the best under-18s player for the last 2 years. And you would have to ask the question, why would they stay? Because if there's no structure at B-team level, obviously, what is the reason for him to stay? Other than the fact he's a die-hard Rangers fan, which obviously you know that, but...
but when you're trying to pan yourself out of career at that level, it means absolutely nothing. If you don't think that, I mean, these guys are trying to make a career for themselves.
I mean, see at the end of the day, like when I look at your brother, for instance, see if he was hitting his stride right now and he was playing as well as he is, like sort of before his injury, and Rangers were giving youth a chance, this would have been the ideal time for Rangers to bring him back and put him in the B team for a year and then obviously push him on towards the first team. But that's not there. So it would be utterly pointless for somebody like him to come to Rangers again.
If he didn't break his ankle, then as soon as Dundee United to get promoted, he would have got the rest of the games in the end of the season. In the first
because because they're in a position now where they're basically promoted. So like, these young kids will get a chance to play. And for all of my dislike of the current Dundee United manager, because I've not been a big fan of his actual style of play, he's given a lot of young players a chance this year to play.
He has, and unfortunately, Willie, in the past I have had my say on Jim Goodwin, but as far as I'm concerned, he's a very, very nice man.
And that's how football works. Like, see when your boys getting a chance to play in the first team, and that manager gives him a chance, he's the best person in the world because he's gave the boy a chance to play. And we don't seem to have that at Rangers at the moment. Whether that's a fear thing, whether that's just the manager doesn't think some of the players are good enough. But, you know, I don't know if the manager would ever come out and be so honest and speak in that manner. You know, if somebody was to ask about a press conference, what's your opinion on Zack Lovely? What's your opinion on Archie Stevens? What's your opinion on Bailey Rice? Is he going to come out and be honest? Because they type of conversation should be kept in-house, really. But I think it would be good for supporters to understand why these guys aren't getting a chance. Because if that's the case, then like the big argument would be, well, we're pumping millions of pounds into the academy every year with coaching, with players, with contracts, obviously keeping the facility open for the academy. That money can be utilised in the first team.
Just do, but then we seen what happened when Falkirk tried to do that. Falkirk get rid of their youth set up and it set them back. And look, we're going to move on from the academy chat because we could be here all night speaking about it. And I'm hoping to do an academy show with Willie soon, and I don't like to take all the talking points away. But I mean, one bad year in the academy can set you back if you don't then go into the next year and get it absolutely spot on. It can absolutely set you back.